Hey, this is the Cash from Connections podcast. My name is John Caprani. Today's guest is Mr. Yaron Been. And Yaron, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
For sure. Happy to be here. I'm very excited. I love the view. I already told you. Yeah, so a bit of a background. So I guess my entrepreneurship journey started while I was in the army. I'm Israeli. You probably can
Hmm.
reckon by the accent. I served in the special forces. And while I got a lot from the service and learned a lot about myself and how I work in a team, I also realized that I don't want to have commanders or bosses
Hmm.
above me or behind me or anywhere around me. So I realized, okay, I must become an entrepreneur. I went about and studied industrial engineering, and then I started working in a media buying agency in Tel Aviv.
Hmm.
I was spending already like $1 million on a monthly basis on Facebook ads
Wow.
after 3 months, which was kind of crazy. But on the other hand, I felt this sense of responsibility, but I had no real upside or downside. You
Hmm.
just come to work, and luckily, I met a friend of mine, and he showed me a dashboard from his Shopify store. And until that moment in time, I thought that dropshipping is just like fake BS that gurus are selling courses that nobody is really making money from that stuff.
Yes.
But it was a childhood friend of mine, and he actually showed me results. So the morning after, my wife and I we built a Wix store, and the same evening we were very lucky. We got our first sale, and this what ignited like the realization that we can make money online. So since then, we both quit our jobs and we started traveling. We left to Thailand. We scaled this store. We actually sold pretty nicely until iOS update, which you probably know about in 2021. And this kind of shifted my understanding of what I want to do. And since then, I've been mostly focusing on providing marketing services and AI and automation related stuff.
You spending like that amount of money in a uh, Facebook ads account, like after 3 months experience in a media buying agency, that's very, very unusual. So what was it about your previous experience that made you able to actually do this?
I don't attribute this to my skill set. It just was the client was spending a ton of money, and the team, um, I mean, the executive kind of relied on me that I would be able to handle it pretty fast. So they
Mhm.
just handed me the account. So it's not as if when you're doing media buying, it's more often most of the results should be attributed to the offer and the market, and you're just clicking buttons when you're only doing media buying. Obviously, this is a caveat. So it's not as if I felt that I was so skillful or so smart. It just they handed me this account, and it was spending a ton of money.
Okay. So right place, right time.
I think they say the market is more important than the niche and the offer. So the market was great. It was a social gaming. It was social gaming a game. People were spending a ton of money on social casino back in the days, also today, to be honest. So yeah, it was just the right offer in the right market.
Nice. What do you think your experiences in the military, what benefit did they bring to you when you became an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I think like stood out to me or still stands out to me in the military is that they can basically teach anyone anything, because you push a ton of volume and they just force feed you with skills. So, for example, they wanted to teach us how to dive. So we went diving 3 times every day. And even during the night, they just threw a tuna can into the water and told us, okay, go find it. So eventually you find it because you know that if you don't find it, you're going to have to do push ups. Or
Hmm.
if they wanted to teach us how to shoot, they sent us for like 2 months in a row shooting 12 hours during the day. So eventually you get good at what you do just when you put in the volume. And I've been a big believer in volume probably before, but this like kind of, we have the confirmation bias. So I believe that volume is a solution for a lot of stuff, especially in the marketing game, which is very hard to predict what will work. So I just believe in putting in the velocity. So a ton of volume hoping for the best but expecting the worst.
Nice. So it's almost a grind it out kind of strategy. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, throwing spaghetti on the wall because, to be honest, I did so many experiments in my life, and most of the times my hypothesis was incorrect. You don't know shit about your customers, and if anyone tells you otherwise, they are probably trying to mislead you, in my opinion. So it's mostly about, just testing very fast and gaining data.
Yeah. A lot of the time, the thing you make and you think it's nice, you make an ad, you think it looks lovely, and nobody clicks on it. And then some crappy, stupid ad that you think is going to go nowhere is the one that brings in customers and leads.
Exactly,
Yeah. It's good. It's a daily reminder not to get too full of your own ideas.
for sure.
So you said you built your business on Wix. You made that first dollar. Like that feeling of that first dollar, it changes everything. You want to talk about that feeling?
It was actually a while ago, but it really gives you this sense of okay, this is possible, and I think this is the most important. It's one of the most important parts in the entrepreneurship journey because you start developing this optimism that you can make it. Since then, you have a roller coaster of emotions, and you need to go through many struggles and many challenges. But I think this like gave me like an alternative pathway. In you just realize you don't have to grind in the 9 to 5 game. So this is why the first dollar is so important. And to be honest, back in the days, it didn't really matter to me what I did. I just wanted to make the first dollar online on my own. And this is also an advice that I give people that approach me and they ask for advice. I just tell them, listen, let's think of your skill set and let's try to monetize this skill set as fast as possible. Just to, because there are also a lot of stuff involved behind the scenes, accounting, bookkeeping, payment processing, this stuff that you're not really aware of until you get to handle this shit. So this is why it's so important to make this first few dollars online as fast as possible.
Yeah, this is true. There are so many parts to running a business that if you knew about them before you started, you're probably never going to get started, right?
Exactly. So maybe it's not so good. Maybe it's not so good advice to uncover all that goes into running a business before you get started. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts you need to handle.
So almost like the less you know, the better. That being
Exactly.
foolish will give you more opportunities to actually for something good to happen.
Exactly. I often think about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's
But
in
explain
anything
it
in
for the
life.
listeners, please. Explain Dunning-Kruger for the
Okay. So
listeners.
Dunning-Kruger effect. It's in a nutshell, it says that people who has less experience sometimes believe that they have more skills than they actually do, and
Hmm.
when you're further along in your learning journey and you have more skills, you start becoming more hesitant and you kind of realize that you don't have a lot of skills, and this has pros and cons in both scenarios. So for me, it's not as if I'm a genius, but I've been in this game for like 15 years and I think that I know shit. But I know people who just started a dropshipping store 2 months ago and they are crushing it just because they have this also beginner's luck, but
Hmm.
also they are not so cautious. They just move forward very fast.
Yes. So there's a good side to Dunning-Kruger, which is that being clueless is almost an advantage because you don't hold yourself back with stupid thinking and spinning wheels in your head. The bad side to it is that you can be totally clueless and be extremely overconfident about shit that's never going to work.
Exactly.
But the comedy version, the meme version is like dumbasses think they're really smart and smart people think they're really dumb.
Uh-huh. Nice. Great.
So you get online, you start making some money, you build up your business, and then you switched into marketing consulting service, which is now. So talk about kind of what business looks like these days, please.
Okay, so these days I'm mostly providing e-com related media buying
Hmm.
services, and I'm also building a YouTube channel, which is if like I've been doing this for like 6 years now, and only in
Hmm.
the last past year I've been very consistent, and it's starting to show some traction. And this is also it was also an interesting learning experience because it's not as if my skill has improved, but the topics I cover have just changed. And this relates to what we discussed before, that the market is more important than many other aspects. So before I used to talk about dropshipping and e-com, and it was already after the boat has shipped. You know, if I would have talked about it in 2016, it would probably gain traction. But talking about this stuff in 2023, it's not as sexy. So lately, since my interests have shifted more towards AI and automation, and I've started
Hmm.
also publishing videos about AI and automation, I'm starting to gain like mini traction. So it was also interesting to see as this, that the market affects way more than what, your skill set, because I don't think my skill has significantly improved. So this is the focus. I want to build this audience
Hmm.
and keep on providing marketing services. And also, I'm also selling some marketing solutions, but this is like a more of a side gig.
So with your focus on AI and automation, is that specifically as it relates to people who are in the e-commerce marketplace to help them be more effective at running their stores?
I wouldn't say. I did create some solutions that are focused on e-com. For
Hmm.
example, for media buying, one of the bottlenecks when you're spending a lot of money on Facebook ads, you want to kind of counter ads fatigue, and you want to create a lot of variations. And I didn't like waiting for the video editors, and I don't like paying video editors, and I don't like briefing video editors. I like being a one-man show. So I just created an automation that basically allows me to generate many variations from existing material. So let's say I have 5 top performing hooks and 5 testimonials and 5 outros. In one click, I generate 125 variations that I can test very fast. So this type of stuff. I mostly just build stuff that I find interesting that will help me avoid the pain of doing stuff manually and avoid the pain of delegating the task. So it's not only specific to ecom, to be honest.
When I see people talking about automation online, they're for the most part talking about ChatGPT and Claude and other package tools like that. When you actually look at it from the point of view of automating workflows, what tools are you using? How are you using
So it really depends on which workflow you want to automate. And I usually make a distinction between a defensive workflow and an offensive workflow. A
it? Okay.
defensive workflow, it's a definition that I made up. So let me just clarify. So a defensive workflow is more like Zapier or Make. You connect APIs. Let's say you get an invoice and you want to automatically send it to your accountant. So this is a defensive workflow. It's being triggered by an external event. I build offensive workflow, and this is what I focus, which is more like let's initiate something that can generate us more money. So, for example, building a scraper. I go and I scrape a directory, or building what I just mentioned, like this tool that generates many variations of video, or stuff like this, which is not trigger based. It's just like automation on demand. And for this, I use sometimes Python, and I'm not a coder, so I just use Claude or Claude Dev. And I also use an RPA tool. RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation, which is a tool provided by Microsoft, which allows you to make many browser automations and many manipulations to different files.
Okay. How do you think about, you know, where can I use it? So you're talking about these offensive automations, which
Mhm.
is you're classifying as anything that you're going to use that's going to bring in more revenue. It's going to actually help you to increase your sales.
Yeah.
How do you come up for ideas about these and how do you implement?
So it's kind of a tango between knowing the capabilities of yourself and the solution, like the softwares, and understanding the needs. So it's usually when I do some stuff manually. Let's say I wanted to get more clients via Facebook, for example. So I went the DM route. So I started liking recent posts of prospects, then adding them, then sending a DM. Okay, but then I realized, okay, I'm not going to do this manually. It takes a ton of effort and it's painful. So let's automate this. And then I did the same with LinkedIn. But then I realized, okay, why don't I find more targeted leads on LinkedIn. So since I knew my capabilities and the capabilities of the platform, I went to LinkedIn and I scraped only companies that posted a job post. I then filtered based on the number of employees, and then I found the CEO automatically, and then I sent it the DM, for example. So it's a combination of understanding the skills and understanding what you want to achieve, and then it's just an exploration. It's never it's not a finite process. And this is a misunderstanding that I had back in the days. Automations are something that you constantly need to nurture and improve.
Okay, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I had this notion that, okay, I'm going to build this automation and I can set and forget. But it's never this way because first of all, there are technical bugs that, stuff changes and you need to optimize. And after you build it, you realize, okay, we can make more out of it. So let's optimize, let's add another layer. So it's never a set and forget. And you got to understand this because you shouldn't enter the automations game with the notion that they are going to set you free. They don't set you free. They just save you a ton of time and effort.
Okay, so can everyone who is in business at any level use automation to be more effective and to actually make more money from their business from the same amount of work time?
I mean, I think automation is a very important lever that a business owner should be able to pull. Especially these days, it's becoming more and more easier because of AI and it makes it more accessible.
Hmm.
Don't think anyone should learn automation. If you want to hire someone who knows automation, that might be a viable route as well. My strategy, because I'm an engineer, I like building, so I want to, and I also want to be self-sustained. So I'm also dedicating time into learning automation. But I don't think anyone should do this. But I do believe that a business owner should at least be aware of the options available presented by automations because if you're not going to automate, you're probably going to stay behind.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of business owners, the issue is often just simple awareness.
Mm-hmm.
They know this stuff is out there, but they don't necessarily know quite what. This I can think of somebody I'm working with who recently hired an automation specialist onto their team
Mm-hmm.
because they know they need to do it, but they don't even know where to start. So they figure, okay, I'll get somebody with the knowledge. Now, when I speak to the automation specialist, I have yet to do the meeting with them. But again, that might be a person who's not, at your level, like an engineer or somebody. It could be just a person who's actually taken some interest and put a few months into learning this.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just showing that business owner what's possible. And then, okay, what can we find in your business that we can actually take people out of and just put process in place?
Yes, and I think like I just spoke with a friend of mine this morning, and he's very successful in real estate, and he wants to introduce some automations into his business. And he also told me, listen, I don't even know what I don't know. So what can I automate? And then I told him, okay, can you give me an example of something that is high impact but is pretty much rule based in your business? So I said, yeah, obviously, I have this thing that I delegate to a virtual assistant of mine. It takes her very long, and it's just we would like to scale this effort. And then I asked him, okay, is it rule based or does she need to make like any logical decisions? So he said, no, it's completely rule based. So I told him, listen, so this is money on the floor because if it's rule based, so there's really no reason to not automate this.
Okay, perfect. Just stepping about a little bit outside of business side for a second, you personally, have you like with what you do, you've got a lot of freedom. Do
Mhm.
you nowadays live in Israel or do you still travel a lot around the world?
No, so we left Israel 5 years ago, and we started out in Southeast Asia, and then we moved to South Africa. And my first daughter was born in Thailand, and we thought that we will spend our lives in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, when she was born, we kind of felt the need to move closer to the families. So
Yeah.
these days we're located in Georgia, which is like 2 hours flight from Israel. Uh,
Yes.
we love it. We never heard about this before COVID. We came here by chance during COVID, and we fell in love with this place. So this is where we're settled these days.
Amazing. Is your wife from Israel also?
Yeah, we're both Israelis. Yeah.
Okay. I've heard so many great things about Georgia. I have a friend who the same. He's been there several times now. He discovered it, I
Uh-huh.
think, because oh yeah, he's into MMA and he wanted to learn
Ah,
to wrestle better than he can to improve his skill in wrestling. So he went to
nice.
Georgia, trained with the serious guys. But he said, yeah, amazing country, beautiful people,
Yeah,
very like just everything nice, simple, a lot of freedom there compared to in a lot of Western countries where they are now.
exactly. Yes.
And so, how is the life there? Do you speak English like in the locally, or have you had to learn the local language?
Yeah, we haven't learned the local language. It's always this internal conflict whether or not you should, learn the local language in order to mix with the locals. But it seems like a lot of effort, and I don't think the ROI is there because I can get around with with English. So yeah, probably I won't learn the language. Most of the services that we're consuming, they do speak English. We have a group of Israeli friends. We have another group of expats friends. So everyone speaks English. Obviously, some of the local, the older generation, they don't speak English, but we don't have a ton of interaction with them anyways.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I've only recently moved to Spain, but this is the second time I've lived in a non-English speaking country with a long-term outlook. And what I found the second time was, the first time was I learned enough just to be able to kind of understand whether somebody is, you know, just to deal with daily interactions and
Yeah.
to kind of understand generally what somebody is like trying to communicate to me. But I also found it was kind of good not to know too much about what's going on. You know,
Mhm.
ignorance is bliss is actually true. Like you don't have to know too much about if you don't know about local politics or the things people are complaining about or what kind of crap they're watching on TV. Those things are good to not know about. That's been my experience.
I 100% agree, and this is one thing that I like about being. I used to be a digital nomad. Today, I don't consider myself a digital nomad, but I like
Mhm.
being isolated from the masses. Um, you know, I have the Israeli political issues, which is more than enough.
Oh yeah,
So
that's not a great conversation starter, is it? That usually results in people getting hot under the collar. That conversation.
Exactly, and also, I mean, there is enough shit going back home, so I don't want to learn about other shitstorm. And every country has their own, stuff. So uh,
Yes.
I like, I like focusing on what is within my control. So
Yes.
it's
Well, the other challenge is unfortunately everyone has an opinion about Israel, although almost nobody has ever gone to visit and see for themselves.
exactly.
But everyone thinks they know. So, you know. Anyway, but yeah, I found it here. Look, I'm here in Spain. I'm learning enough just to get by and to be polite to people because I do think there's a level of basic civility that I want to just be able to say hello, go into a restaurant, order my lunch, and use that little bit of the language to interact with people on an everyday basis. But there's another part of me where I definitely feel like being an outsider is good. It lets you focus on yourself, focus on what's important for your immediate family and your own needs, and can be actually kind of a positive thing. Although it's not a very popular opinion when you say it out loud. So I'm kind of glad to hear other people think it too.
No, I think it really depends on who you surround yourself with. And I mean, if you go back home and you tell this, probably people would think you're a weirdo. But
Yeah.
my experience with speaking with expats and digital nomads is most, no, I wouldn't say most of them, but some of them also um, can relate to this understanding that you don't want to mix. You want to keep this expat mentality. It's like I wouldn't say exploitative mentality, but this. There is this famous YouTuber. He's called the Nomad Capitalist, and
Mm-hmm.
his slogan is "Go where you're treated best." And I
Mm-hmm.
really like this slogan. Great branding, by the way. And yeah, I'm also I don't want to be attached to anything. I'm just going to go where I'm treated best. So this is why I like being the outsider as well.
On the long term, um, when you're doing this for longer periods of time as a nomad, or say not a nomad, as an expatriate with a family, how do you find it is for like for your children for their integration into the schools and the local society and those things?
So it's too early to measure, but my oldest is only 3 years old and my youngest
Okay.
is 2 months old. But I'm sure nothing is perfect. It's all about trade-offs. So at the moment, it seems like a trade-off that I'm willing to take. Maybe later on, I hope my mom isn't listening to this. Maybe later on I'll go back to Israel, but I
No,
don't think so.
phone's gonna ring now. Yeah, well, look, mine are a little bit older. Mine are 8 and 10, and our experience was, I think, when they got to the age where they needed their primary school education, where we were at that time, we were in Fiji, where
Mhm,
my wife is from, and the the educational options that were there we didn't feel were very
mhm,
good, and we knew that fundamentals education, like basic math skills, basic reading skills, were good in Ireland.
mhm,
And then I also felt like they didn't have at that time any Irish identity. They had a fully Fijian identity, which was fine, but I felt like, okay, you need to have both parts of who you are.
mhm,
And so for that reason, we did go back for a few years. But when we went back to Ireland that time in 2018, I knew it was not forever. I said, I'll do
mhm.
this for a while. But the reasons I left before are, are still there. You
Yeah,
know, there were reasons why I left that country. And even though it's my home, like it's not the place for me to live. And this time
interesting.
we moved away, and it's only a month ago, but I'm like, oh, the sense of relief after we moved away again. It's like, yeah, we've made the right decision. This might not be forever, this particular place, but the
Mhm.
feeling of the relief from having left again was like, yes, love my family, love my home, but not the perfect place for me to live my life.
For sure. Yeah, I can definitely relate, and I agree that when you put into the equation like schools and education, it kind of changes the equation. That
Mm-hmm.
being said, my goal is to send my kids to private institutions,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that any private institution is going to be better than the institution provided by the free educational system.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not a huge socialist. So
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's funny that it is kind of a socialist institution, but in I don't know, in places like Ireland, it doesn't seem that way. It just seems like it's the local school. Oftentimes, the school was built around the local church community, so it was
Mhm,
more just kind of like this is what's available for kids because a lot of the sort of local cultures and communities built up at it before people had the motor car there.
mhm,
Anything more than a 2 or 3 mile trip was a serious undertaking,
uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, until I left Israel, I thought that Israel was a capitalistic country, but
Mm-hmm.
then but the more I live out of Israel and out of the Western countries, I realize that it's mostly socialistic, disguised as capitalistic, at
Mm-hmm.
least based on my understanding. I'm not an economical expert, but I prefer more freedom. And I don't think that these Western countries provide this freedom. But yeah, I'm not sure about also the motives. I mean, they do tell you that this is capitalism and never mind. Let's not go into politics. But
Let's not get into politics. But but yeah, I agree. Sometimes when I had my kids in like a local school environment for a couple of years, and some very good things come out of it. They get access to sports, they get some access to social, but then you notice some of the attitudes start to creep in that that they're hearing from other children, and it's very a lot of the times it's sort of an unquestioning acceptance of the status quo of the way things are. And
Mhm.
if you're a person who's very individualistic, um, or you're wired that way where you're not willing to go along with what everybody else feels is right and okay, and you have your own views. Um, for me, I just felt like, hey, I need to actually take a step away from that. I think it would be better for the kids long term to take a step away where they form their own views that are not consensus views, but pushed on them by the people and the environment around them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
That was actually something I wanted to just mention to you as well. It's like, because you said you wanted to get away from commanders and bosses earlier in the conversation. And there's like two things about when you start to make some money with doing something online. Is like the first one is like, shit, like this is real, like this actually happened. But the second one is like very quickly you start walking around. Like I was in the supermarket today, and I feel sometimes a lot of sympathy for you see somebody and they're doing their job and they seem like quite a nice person, but you can tell by their face and the way their demeanor, their emotion when you connect with them is that they're trapped
Yeah.
and you walk around and you see people who are trapped a lot of the time by circumstance and they probably could change but they just don't know this the capacity or the ability or it's just impossible for them And I think the other side of this whole thing of doing stuff for yourself and generating your own income online is that you look around and you think, I can never go back. I'd rather be a dead man to go and get a job again. And if I do go and get a job again, I'll be like a dead man walking.
For sure. Yeah, I can definitely relate, but I think there is a caveat that also entrepreneurs struggle like crazy. So, it's not as if the entrepreneurship journey is, and I'm sure you didn't say this, but I just want to emphasize that as
Yes.
an entrepreneur, it can become hard as fuck, and it's also can be very lonely. So it's not as if it's only roses. But yeah, when you have the capability, at least for me, when I realized that I have the capability, so it expanded expanded the potential of what I believe that I could do, and it made me feel better. But it's not as if I didn't have these days which I had like this shit face on my on my face.
Yes. Sorry, I probably should. Yeah, with that caveat is there is like, it's not like it makes things better on a day-to-day basis because you can have a day where things go really good and you feel amazing. And the
Uh-huh.
very next day, one or two things go wrong and you feel like utter shit. It's this
Exactly.
horrible emotional roller coaster on a day-to-day basis where you have fantastic days and the most awful days. And it can
Exactly.
be the same, it can be 2 days in a row. And it can happen two, three times a week sometimes.
Exactly.
Yaron, how do people find out about you, connect with you, or get the opportunity to work with you?
Yeah, so I guess going to my YouTube channel would make most sense. So just
Absolutely.
search my name, Yaron, Yaron, Been, Been. It's pretty
Hmm.
unique. So no issues with SEO over there. And yeah, check out my stuff over there. I'm kind of active on LinkedIn, although I'm doubling down on YouTube. But if people want to reach out, just speak about automations. I'm always happy to know about to speak about this stuff. Automations. It gets me. It fascinates me. So yeah, reach out on LinkedIn. That would be cool.
And just final question, just because you mentioned it now, why are you focusing your energy and time on YouTube these days? What is it about YouTube?
Great question. Mm, I think YouTube. Okay, so this is going to be a bit long. So
That's okay.
basically, I often think about the barrier to entry. So dropshipping had a very low barrier to entry. But when you have a low barrier to entry, the barrier to success becomes higher because you have more supply in the marketplace. Now, with AI, I believe so. Every business is built, let's say, if we simplify it, it's built from building and selling. So back in selling, anyone can do, although it's a skill you need to improve. But out out of the gate, you can sell even if you're just started. But building, not anyone could have done back in the day. So this was a barrier to entry. But these days, building is becoming easier and easier because of AI and the abilities to generate code. So I think the the barrier to entry to building a product is becoming lower and lower.
Yes.
So I kind of thought, okay, so building SaaS isn't as challenging as it used to be. So
Hmm.
where can I go, which is very challenging? And whenever you speak with someone, like 90% of the population is scared of exposing themselves, so putting skin in the game. AI won't replace, I mean, AI won't mitigate people's fear of being skin in the game. And especially AI won't mitigate public speaking, the fear of public speaking. So this is why I said, okay, let's go and do YouTube videos because it's the hardest thing to do, exposing yourself. And I took like accent classes, acting classes, anything that I could do in order to improve my confidence in English because it's not my native, not my native language. And this is why I'm kind of doubling down on YouTube. Very long answer all over the show, but basically, I think it's the hardest thing to do, and this is why I'm doubling down on it because it has just a very high barrier to entry because people are just afraid to do it.
Love it. Yeah, the technical barriers to entry are all being pulled down. So what
Exactly.
remains is personal and psychological barriers. And
Exactly.
and I have had periods where I'm very prolific with content, and right now, recently, the last couple of months, because my move, I kind of fell off. I know it's time to get out there and start to push content again. I was on a call with my coach yesterday. He was like, "Why? Like, look at this. Look, he's like, look at your pathetic Instagram. Where the hell is your content?"
Uh-huh.
Because that thing that holds people back is just unwillingness to actually stick themselves out there all the time. And that's never going away as long as people are alive. Most of us are afraid of public exposure and public speaking.
Exactly, exactly. So I try to do like use deepfake in order to generate videos of myself speaking, but
Yeah,
technology isn't there yet. So focus on putting yourself out there. And I'm a big believer in the concept of skin in the game, and it aligns with this concept. So
love it. Great answer. Thank you so much for your time
awesome.
today. Appreciate
It
you
was
being here.
great. Thank you so much,
I-
John. Take care. Bye bye.
I'll stop the recording.
Awesome. How was it?
Good.